Hello guys, I'm back again. I'm sorry it took me just a little bit long to come up with this part 7 of SCCM Home Lab series. I was busy with my work and a few other things. So in this video, I'm just going to show you how to create and deploy SCCM package. This video will cover basically a software. It's called Krita, and the version of that software is 4.2.2. I'm going to create an unattended installer. Basically, it's just going to have executable with a switch, silent switch /s. Then I'm going to stage that installer in the SCCM in a staging folder. I have already created that staging folder, which I showed you in the previous video. It's on SCCM server. The drive is S, and the folder name is packages. Then I'm gonna go ahead and launch the SCCM console and create a SCCM package and program. I'll create two programs. One would be a install, and then one would be uninstall. Because it's very important that whatever stuff that you deploy into production environment, you always want to make sure that you also have uninstaller, a clean uninstaller for that. So whatever you basically deploy, whatever you install, it should uninstall exactly the same way, so that the machine is clean from whatever stuff that was deployed. Once that's completed, then I'm just gonna go ahead and distribute that package to the distribution point. And then also during that time, I'm just gonna show you which collection of machines I'm going to target for that deployment. Then I'll deploy the package, actual deployment. And then we'll just quickly go and verify if the package was deployed successfully or not. If you are new to my channel, I'm Bibi, a software engineer who loves to share the knowledge, and welcome to my channel. If you have not subscribed to my channel yet, please go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell icon so you could get notified for all of my future videos. Please watch this video till the end, because you will find the link to the next part of this video series at the end screen. And also you might want to get started with the very first video of this series, and the link to that series is in the description of this video. Let's move to the next screen and get started. Alright, so I'm just gonna log into the SCCM server real quick here. SCCM 01, connect the awesome password here. So what I have done already is I have created a silent installer for that application, the one that I downloaded. You could download that one. It's called Krita Foundation. You could just Google it and download it. For this demo purpose, I downloaded it in as an executable. And I went and checked on the vendor site and found the silent installer for it. Basically, all it is that you just take that executable and just run that one with the /s, and it would just silently install. I have already tested that one on one of the test machine. This is a packaging part of this is basically packaging, so I cannot go further in detail. You would, whenever you're trying to deploy a package, you would need to make sure that you have already silent installer created. I do plan on creating more videos around packaging down the road, especially after I'm completed with all of the settings of the SCCM environment, which is going to be imaging is next, and also patching and a few more things. Once I'm done through those, then I can move on to packaging, and I can start showing you some of the stuff around packaging. You could actually also look at you could Google or YouTube. There are very good resources out there that could help you how to create the silent packages too. So for now, for this demo purpose, I'm just gonna go with whatever I have already worked on. So the way as I had said in my previous video too, I like to keep up with some kind of standards. So the way I am starting to put my packages, I'm just putting packages is the folder which is going to have all of the packages. But then I create the vendor. In this case, it's a Krita Foundation. Um, then obviously you could see I got here for Microsoft. There's a Skype in it. So then I go and underneath the vendor, I put the product name. Let's say if they had ABCD, different product, FGH, a different product. So each product, I have a kind of a folder for each product. So underneath that Krita, I have exact version of that package. Just in case if they decide to release another one, then I have already a good folder structure set up with the good naming conventions, and it's a good practice to do that. So underneath that, and you could also see the way my naming convention is that I also try to put that the structure too. In this case is x64, which is a 64-bit application. If it was let's say 32-bit, so I would just create a folder something like very similar to 32, like that. So 32-bit, but I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this one because we know this is a 64-bit. So ideally, I would even create a package version here too, which I could probably call it 1.0.0, just in case if I am trying to modify this package and there are some problems with it, I have something to work with and I have a good versioning control on that. So let's go with that. Here I created, when I was testing it, I created install.exe, .bat, and all it has is a command line. This basically means that run it wherever you from the current folder. Don't worry about it for now. If you understand it, it's good, but if you don't worry about it. All you need is this is a command line to install this. That's a silent command. And then for uninstall, all you need is to run this and it will uninstall it. You could look into the vendor documentation for this executable that teaches you how to create a silent installer. Every installer has its own way of creating a silent installer, so you're gonna have to kind of get familiar with that kind of stuff. So we have this. This is a part one, which is I said I'm going to stage it. So the package is staged now and it's ready. I'm just gonna copy this path and I'm gonna keep this minimized here, just in case if I have to come back and then take a look at it. Once it's done, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna launch the SCCM console and start creating the package, the SCCM package. Launch a configuration manager console. Click on the software library, go into application management, and in the previous video I went into applications. We are not going to do that this time. I'm just going to go into packages. I'm going to right click it and create a new package, whatever the name of the package is. In this case, that's why I kind of kept it here too, so that I can kind of go and copy and paste the text from here. This would be the name is Krita. You could come up any kind of a naming convention. So I usually like to keep it which makes sense and which is already approved by the client too, so that everybody kind of knows, and even kind of by the team too, so everybody knows what exactly is going on and what to look for. Manufacturer, so I'm just gonna leave this one here for now. The manufacturer for this one is called Krita Foundation, so paste it here. Language we know is English. If it's something else, you could just put there. EN is for English, and then just put the version over here, which is 4.2.2. 4.2.2, and this package contains source files, which we know it does. It's going to need that. If it was just something like a command file that you are trying to execute, then you don't need to check this part. But in this case, I am going to check it. And then where the source folder is, which is where your executable is, you could click on browse and kind of go through it it does require the UNC path, and you could click browse and then kind of go to that folder. But since I have it open here, this is the path for my packages folder, whack SCCM01 $, packages, and basically the full path to wherever this executable is sitting. So that's the full path for it. Copy and just simply paste it. I'm sorry, just paste it here. Click next. For this demo purpose, we're just going to create a standard package. As we grow, I'll create more packages, and I'll show you for each one what the other tools are. But for this one, we're just going to use the standard program. Click next. Name. This is where I'm going to call this one as install. And then what is the command line? So if you click on this one, browse here, this already knows, the system knows already where basically where all the source files are. So we know this is executable, is right here. So click open, but it still does need the full command line, which I had tested and I had created with this right here, Krita, which is basically the full executable /s. So to /s, you might be creating, like, let's say an installer that has /silent. It might have silent space /no restart. I mean, each installer has their own command lines and the switches. So you would need to get familiar with those things for those installers. So in this case, it is just /s. Startup folder, leave it as is. We want to run as normal. You could run it as minimized, which is basically if it is a command line, you're not going to see it. Just like the way if you're running a minimize command line. Maximizes is going to take over on all of the screen whenever it's executed, and hidden is completely hidden. So I'm just going to leave it as normal. Program can run. It's very self-explanatory. When should it run? Like only when user is logged in. So if you push it, if the user is not logged in to the machine, it will not execute if you have this option selected. So what we are I'm going to do is I will go with this option whether or not user is logged on. This means that even if the user is not logged on but the machine is powered on, it will install it for that. But make sure that if you select this option, whether or not it's going to install, it's going to force it to install as an administrator. So if you look at this, once I selected that option, run mode, run with admin rights, that's why it's kind of forcing it. But if you select it only when a user is logged on, it does give you different options here if you want to run it as a user or as admin. Some apps does require that where you want to run it as a user. Once you're going to get good at application packaging, you're going to start start looking into that and start understanding why you want to run anything as a user. Let's say there is some files or something that needs to go on the machine under the user profile. That's where that would be one tiny example of it. There could be so many other applications of when and why you would need to run this one as a user. So for this demo purpose, I'm just going to go with whether or not user logged in. And then you could also say only when no user is logged in. I mean, that's the choice there for you too. But we're going to go for whether or not a user is logged in. And this check mark is allow user to view and interact with the program. If you allow this, then user can kind of mess with it, depending on what kind of installer it is. Ideally, you don't ever want to check this one. There would be some occasions that you do want the user to interact with the installer. Like, let's say maybe there is some kind of a field that user must enter in the installer, then you do want to allow this one, and then the system would allow them. But for now, we're not going to do that. Here, drive mode is runs with UNC name, or there are some applications that, like, let's say they require a drive letter. So you would require that drive letter. It goes back again how this setup.exe is written. So goes back to the packaging, or if you are only in the deployment side of it, you will need to talk to your packaging team and talk to them and get you those command lines exactly how it needs to be loaded in SCCM. So there are some that require like hard-coded letter. Let's say if it must run from drive letter M. So this is where you will go with that and then run it as M. Or if it just requires a drive letter, then it's going to, during the runtime, it will mount this setup.exe into that drive, whatever is available to the system. So it's not kind of hard-coded to that. So majority of the time, you will be just fine if you are run with the UNC name, and you should run as a UNC name. Click next, select that, and then click next. Here, let's say that there is a prerequisite for it, and you already have created a package, and you want to run that one. Let's say this was dependent on a specific version of Microsoft .NET. So you have you could check this one, and you could click browse, and if you have .NET with a specific version of .NET already packaged, you would go and select it here. Since we don't need anything and I don't have any other packages created, that's why you're not seeing anything over here. But as we progress and create more packages and load more applications, you're gonna start seeing them getting populated over here. For this demo, not needed. Uncheck that. Platform requirements. So this program can run on any platform, which means it can run on anything. Wherever you're going to push it, it's not going to care, but you want it to care. You don't want to, like, once I'm going to check this, this program can only run on a specific platform. You could see that anything that is supported by SCCM, I mean even Ubuntu, Solaris, other operating systems too, not only Windows, like Oracle Linux is there, Oracle Linux, different version of Debian, all of those. So for the this is where you could kind of dictate on the installer which one to basically only run. Like, let's say if I check this, it will only run on all Windows 7 with 64-bit. If I check on all Windows 10 with 64-bit, you get the point. For this purpose, demo's purpose, I'm just going to leave it as this program can run on anything because it's just in the lab. I'm not going to worry about it. Estimated disk time, disk space. This is good for environment where the disk space on the client machine, the endpoint, is important. You might want to make sure that it has a good space for this installer. However, it takes 10 gig, 15 gig, I mean megabyte, not gig, meg, 500, depending on whatever that is. So I'm not gonna select anything here because it's a very small installer, but you might want to make sure how much space is going to take on that machine. Next, maximum allowed runtime. This is when the executable, the installer, which is that in this case, this Carita X setup.exe is going to run for how long, so the installation is completed. Let's say if I select this one, and these are all the executables, by the way, you could just look at it. I want you. Let's say that this was that installer, so it's gonna keep installing for that many minutes once it's not completed in that time period, it's going to time out and it's going to error out, even though if the installer is running. So this is kind of a very important information for you, and it's a very important for you to give enough time for the installer for especially for the slower machines. So make sure it has enough time. I usually try to add 3 times of whatever I found out during my testing. Whenever I was testing and trying to deploy and just test it, I make sure for production deployment I add that 3 times to it. So for this one, I'm just going to leave it as default. Next, it's a summary of what you did above here. Go through it, make sure they're kind of correct. Click next. So this is very important again, as I kind of explained in the past videos too. Check mark, green check mark is very, very important. Go through, kind of validate it, especially if you're trying to deploy to so many machines, thousands of machines. Make sure that these are good. It's a good idea all the time to sit down and have a peer review. Maybe that would help you a lot too. So we have now a package created. And it had created only one program. You could just click on that, and then just that's the summary. It gives you the package ID and all that kind of information, and this package ID is automatically kind of created. So programs, it has one, which is just for install. So I'm gonna go ahead and create another one that would be uninstalled, because you want to make sure that if you are deploying something, you should be able to uninstall too. So right click it, and here now you're going to do create program. Right click on the package that you just created and create program. It's going to be again standard program. Next, I'm gonna name it. I'm gonna call it uninstall. And here now we don't need to go and browse and look at it, because I already have the uninstaller for it, which is right here. I have command line written in this, and I got this one from add and remove program. Again, packaging question. I'm not gonna go into details for it, but if you run this one on as an admin, like by opening as a command prompt and run this one as an admin, it will uninstall it if it was already installed. So I'm just gonna use that one here, copy and paste it, just as simple as that. Normal, whether or not the user is logged in, and that's about it. Click next. I'm just gonna leave it as is. Click next, and then click next. Same thing, go through it and make sure everything is how you expect it to be. Now we have the package created. We have for that package we have 2 programs created. Now I'm going to distribute them to the distribution point. So right click it, distribute content. Next, here you could add the distribution point, or actually you could deploy to collections too, but we're just going to do the distribution point first. So since I have only one, you might have more. I have worked into environment where they have hundreds of them, so depending on how big the environment is, but for this lab purpose it's just one, so I'm just going to distribute to only one. And how to create this and all setup, you could start from the beginning of this video series. I show you everything step by step how to do that. Next, next, close. All right, so now once it's done, if you just want to kind of take a look at it, you could click here and you see it's already in progress. All I did is select the package and then select the summary of it. So you could just take a look at it. It's still in progress. Sometimes it's a good idea to, before you actually set up the deployment, just verify that the content is distributed wherever it needs to go. You might have, like, let's say you are sitting in Fort Worth, Texas, which I am right now, and I'm trying to send something in Europe or Germany. I mean, any European country. Germany is in Europe now, but so you would have probably a or multiple distribution points in Europe or in Middle East or in Asia. So you want to make sure that all of the content is distributed successfully. If not, then what it's going to do, it will just every machine that is trying to install that package, it will come back to Fort Worth, and we don't want that to happen because it's a very big strain on the network, and your packages are going to start failing too. So I'm just going to right click and refresh it. As you could see, it's distributed successfully. So now we have two programs created. We have one SCCM package created. Now I'm going to deploy it. And for deployment, I need to know who I am deploying it to. So for that matter, I have created a collection. And to go and check that collection, you could click on the asset and compliance, and then click on device collection. And this is my collections, all of my collections. I'll show you how to create them with queries and stuff in my future videos. But for now, I have already created this Bibi test lab, which we've been using. Even I used this one for in the last video too. So just if you want to look at it, what is in there, just double click on it. And I have two machines in there, TWin10, T for test, Win for Windows 10, test one machine, and then TWin10-2 is 2. So I will just go for this demo purpose, just verify it only on one, which is TWin10-2, and I will conclude my video with that one. We are not going to touch that D1. So to do that, now I know where it's going to deploy it. So I'm just going to go back. You could deploy it from here too. I'm not going to confuse you, but you can do that. But I'm just going to go back to the package, software library, packages, the DB package that I created. Right click, deploy. So it's going to ask me which software you want to deploy. So we are deploying. So right here, you could see those. This is the reason why I created two programs, install and uninstall. I'm just going to, since I'm deploying for install, so I'm just gonna run as install, select as install, click OK. And then collection, click on browse and go Bibi test lab. OK. Click next. And as you could see, it's already distributed, so it's showing that this is where it's already distributed. Let's say if you had more distribution points and you wanted to add them, this is your this would be your chance to add them here. But for this demo, we're just gonna click next. This is where you could make it available or required. So select required because I want to install it right away. I don't want it to make it available where user has a choice to go and look and then install it. I just want to make sure that it's required. So whenever the deployment time kind of gets to when I want it to execute, it's going to execute. It's going to be required. Don't worry about these two for this. Click next. Scheduling. So this program will be available as soon as it has been distributed to the content servers, unless it is scheduled. So if I don't do anything and go next, then obviously it's going to start pushing it out and make it available to those machines. But I'm going to show you how, and we're going to go over this and we're going to set it up just a little bit so that you have understanding what is going on. So click the schedule when this deployment will become available. This is the time when you complete this process. It will start copying the bits onto those machines. Whenever this time, whatever the time that is selected here, is going to happen on that machine locally. So make sure this is the time when it's gonna become available, and this is the time when it's gonna execute. So you could schedule it. So let's say that you want, let's say that the package is kind of big and you want to make sure that all the bits are there on Monday by 8 a.m. I'm just making up the time, and that's the time you want to execute. So what you could do on, let's say Friday, you want to go and you want to set up, and you're gonna set the deployment where the bits are available on Friday, let's say 8 p.m. So it will have 2 days for it to copy over. Everything is gonna be copied and waiting for it on that machine. And you could set it up right here when to execute it. So you would go schedule that and start pushing it so that the bits are copying over, but actual execution is gonna happen in this right here. So in this case, I'm just gonna say as soon as possible, which means whenever this time hits and is 100% available to it, start installing it right away. Okay. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave those questions in the comment section, and I'll be more than happy to answer each one of your questions. Next is the run behavior. Run if failed with the previous attempt. It's like how you want it to run. So if it was failed, in this case, if we select this, it is gonna run that. Never rerun. It will just run once and that's it. Doesn't matter what the results were. Always rerun. It's gonna keep running over and over. Never do this unless you have a very, very clear reason why to do it. Otherwise, it's gonna keep installing the same thing over and over, and it's gonna cause you pain, like a really pain. And then this one is rerun if failed, previous attempt. So it's gonna do one more time. Rerun if successful. It's gonna do it again too. And there are many reasoning behind it. I don't think that you need to go into the details for this video. So you just probably would need to read a little bit more about why you would want to choose other than this. So click next. Allow user to run program independently of assignment. Yes, there are certain conditions you could do it, but for now, don't worry about it. We're just gonna leave it here. This one, when scheduled assignment is read. Allow basically whenever the execution time happen. Allow the following activities to be performed outside of the maintenance window. So start installing this installation, or if the machine is into a reboot state or pending reboot, or if it requires a reboot, it will just reboot it. And for a write filter handling for Windows Embedded, this is only for Windows Embedded, and it will commit the changes on those machines, because you know how the embedded work a little bit different. They're usually used for a kiosk. Whole different discussion. We are not going to go into details. Click next. Select the deployment options to use when client is connected within the fast LAN network. So ideally, it's always good unless I always prefer to download it locally and then execute it. There could be a discussion about it too, but for this one, let's go with it. Download it locally into the cache and then run it so that all the bits are there. You don't have to worry about anything coming through the network and then installing it, because there could be some lag or something and it can fail the installation. These next two allow clients to share. If you have a Windows 10 or even some other mechanism installed in the networking where Windows branch cache is enabled. Basically, each client they work more like it's a kind of a peer-to-peer deal, more like how LimeWire used to work. It's like that. So don't worry about this for now. Click next. Verify. This is a summary. Go through it. Verify everything. What you are doing, peer review. I would say if it's a production deployment. Next. So boom. Okay, so this is now created. So now what I want to do is I will just go and log into those one of those two machines, and I'll manually force the SCCM client to update, so it can receive the package that I just created. I'm just going to log into it with my awesome password. Here we are. Don't see anything here as of now. Nothing with that software. So to force the SCCM policy, I have showed you this in a previous video too. You should know this by now, but go to control panel. By the way, I am logged into TWin10 -2. Control panel, uninstall a program. No, sorry, my bad. Category, small icons, and look for configuration manager right here. And click on actions, machine policy, run. It's gonna start running that. And we are going to wait for a few. And it's gonna come through very soon. I'm just gonna pause it for a second. Okay, so it did came through and it did installed it. So you could see it right here. And now what I'm gonna do is I'll just go and kind of you could verify it. Obviously, if it has a shortcut or anything, you could just take a look at it and verify how the software installs. This case, it does leave some entries in the add and remove programs. So I could just go and kind of look in there too. Ooh. Right here. It also creates a software, the icon. That's kind of one of validation. But if there is anything that doesn't have those kind of icons or anything, you could also go and look it into the SCCM logs, which is C Windows CCM logs, and the log name. I just forgot exactly how they are calling it. So I'm gonna look at it. I know which one it is. Is I believe exec manager. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just spent some time. I looked at the exec manager. I think. EXEC. Right there. Yeah. Exec manager. You could just go in there and look at the last kind of entries, and it will show you. If you go back and just look at this res programs, just the info. So you could kind of guess from here to like what happened, and it will give you in the logs. You could just kind of look at this. This is the package advertisement ID, package ID is there, and which program ran. That's another way of looking at it too. There are so many other. You need to kind of start looking into the SCCM logs, all the logs. There are so many resources available online. Just Google it, and I'm going to try to compile a list of maybe a few of the websites too. The one that has thorough explanation of each log and where you can find them. So one day I'm going to share it with you guys. Okay, so that's all about it. The only next, we verified it, we pushed the package, we verified it, it's installed. Now the other way I could do is, I would probably leave it up to you if you are following the lab. Then now what you could do, in fact, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna push now uninstall. So right click, deploy, browse, uninstall, okay, browse to the collection, same collection. Okay, next. Exact same way, follow all of the same things that we did for install. The only difference is when I selected the uninstall. So I'm just gonna go ASAP, next, leave everything default, next. Next, next, and close. So I'm gonna go back to the same machine and refresh the policy. As you could see, it's still here. Go into this small icon, config manager, and this should go pretty fast now because there are no files that needs to be copied over. All right, come on. Come on, do it. Right there. It just got uninstalled right there. Sorry, I think previously, again, I don't know, but I think I had refreshed the hardware policy versus the machine policy. So now if I just go back and take a look into the add anywhere programs, it's uninstalled. So this concludes how to create and deploy an SCCM package. I hope that you liked it. If you have any questions and if I went too quick, please apologize. I apologize. But if you have any kind of questions, leave me a comment. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. Peace.